Israel withdraws from Netzarim corridor in Gaza. Trump to announce new 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium imports. Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for tuning in to World Today with me, Renee Fong. The Israeli military has withdrawn from an area of Gaza known as the Netzarim corridor that bisects the enclave, a move that was expected under the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. An Israeli security source confirmed that the military was withdrawing from its positions in central Gaza. Hamas celebrated the withdrawal as a victory, and the Hamas-run police force was deployed to the area to manage the flow of Palestinians crossing through the corridor. Since the early months of the war, Israeli forces had occupied the roughly 6-kilometer-long corridor south of Gaza City that stretches from the Israeli border to the Mediterranean Sea. The corridor cut off Gaza's northern communities, including its largest metropolitan area from the south. Thousands of Palestinians have streamed through the corridor in recent weeks, returning to their homes in the north from southern Gaza, where they had sought shelter from the war. Some who crossed over have described their shock after seeing the destruction of communities and discovering what they said were human remains in areas where Israeli forces had withdrawn. Much of northern Gaza has become a wasteland following Israel's devastating campaign. In another development, Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank shot dead 3 people, including a woman who was 8 months pregnant. Israeli forces launched an operation in the Nur Shams refugee camp on the outskirts of Tulkarem in the northern West Bank as part of an ongoing offensive in nearby camps. The Palestinian Health Ministry said 23-year-old Sundus Jamal Muhammad Shalabi was killed in the incident, with her husband Yazan Abu Shola critically injured. The mother-to-be was dead when she arrived at a local hospital. The ministry said the medical teams were unable to save the baby's life due to the Israeli occupation preventing the transfer of the injured to the hospital. It added a second woman, 21-year-old Rahaf Fuad Abdullah Al-Ashkar, was killed in a separate incident in Nur Shams. A source in the camp's popular committee said she was killed and her father wounded when the Israeli forces used explosives to open the door of their house. Another Palestinian, Iyas Adli Fakhri Al-Akras, aged 20, was also killed after being shot by Israeli forces in the camp. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry condemned what it described as a crime of execution committed by the occupation forces, accusing Israel of deliberately targeting defenseless civilians. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries have condemned remarks by Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu, who appeared to suggest in an interview that a Palestinian state could be established on Saudi territory. Netanyahu's remarks came with the region already on edge after US President Donald Trump proposed taking over the territory and displacing Gazans abroad. Arab League chief Ahmed Abul Ghaid said the thinking behind Netanyahu's remarks is unacceptable and reflects a complete detachment from reality, adding that such ideas are nothing more than mere fantasies or illusions. The Saudi Foreign Ministry stressed its categorical rejection to such statements that aim to divert attention from the continuous crimes committed by the Israeli occupation against the Palestinians in Gaza. Jordan's Foreign Ministry also condemned them as inflammatory and a clear violation of international law, stressing that the Palestinians have the right to establish an independent, sovereign state alongside Israel. The Foreign Ministry of the United Arab Emirates also denounced Netanyahu's comments as reprehensible and provocative, calling them a blatant violation of international law and the United Nations Charter. US President Donald Trump said he will announce new 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports into the US, which would come on top of existing metals duties in another major escalation of his trade policy overhaul. Trump also said he will announce reciprocal tariffs on Tuesday or Wednesday to take effect almost immediately. He said the US would match tariff rates levied by other countries and that this would apply to all nations. Trump, during his first term, imposed tariffs of 25% on steel and 10% on aluminum, but later granted several trading partners duty-free quotas, including Canada, Mexico, and Brazil. Former President Joe Biden extended these quotas to Britain, Japan, and the European Union, and US steel mill capacity utilization has dropped in recent years. And according to government and American Iron and Steel Institute data, the largest sources of US steel imports are Canada, Brazil, and Mexico, followed by South Korea and Vietnam. By a large margin, Canada is the largest supplier of primary aluminum metal to the United States, accounting for 79% of total imports in the first 11 months of last year. Mexico, meanwhile, is a major supplier of aluminum scrap and aluminum alloy. China's tariffs on the US will kick in today in retaliation for US President Donald Trump's sweeping duties on all Chinese imports, which took effect last week. Beijing's limited reply to Trump's tariffs underscored the attempt by Chinese policymakers to engage Trump in talks to avert an outright trade war between the world's two largest economies. Trump said last week that he was in no hurry to speak to Chinese President Xi Jinping, though a dialogue between the two was seen as key to a potential easing or delay of tariffs, as conversations with Mexican and Canadian leaders did last week. White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt told reporters last week that President Xi had reached out to Trump and that a Trump-Xi call still needed to be scheduled. Trump has warned that he might increase tariffs on China further unless Beijing stems the flow of fentanyl, a deadly opioid, into the United States. China says it has taken significant steps to crack down on the chemicals and illicit drug trade, and that it would challenge the tariffs at the World Trade Organization, where it filed a complaint against Trump's measures on Wednesday. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres has welcomed the formation of a new government in Lebanon, affirming the international body's commitment to that country's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and political independence. In a statement, spokesman Stefan Dujarric said the United Nations look forward to working in close partnership with the new government on its priorities, including the consolidation of the cessation of hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah. Fighting between Israeli forces and long-dominant Hezbollah since October 2023 has weakened the group, helping bring a new Lebanese government to power after almost 2 years of caretaker authorities being in charge. New Prime Minister Nawaf Salam now faces the daunting task of overseeing the fragile Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire and rebuilding the country. Salam said he hoped to head a government of reform and salvation, pledging to rebuild trust with the international community after years of economic collapse. Canada and Philippines in final stages of mutual troops deployment pact. That and more coming up next. Canada and the Philippines are in the final stages of negotiating a pact to allow them to deploy troops on each other's soil. Manila already has similar visiting forces agreements with the United States and Japan, and is also in talks with France and New Zealand in the face of China's growing assertion of claims to the South China Sea. Canada's ambassador to Manila, David Hartman, said they are in the final stages of negotiating the agreement which will enable them to have deeper cooperation and more substantive participation in training to build capacity. He expressed hope that the signing and ratification of the agreement by both governments can be finalized before the end of this year. He noted that Canadian officials held discussions last month with counterparts from the Philippine Defense and Foreign Departments. The agreement would allow for future participation by Canadian troops in large-scale joint military exercises held every year between the Philippines and the United States. Indian security forces killed at least 31 Maoist rebels in one of the deadliest clashes since the government ramped up efforts to crush the long-running insurgency. Police said 2 Indian commandos were also killed in the battle and 2 other security force members were injured. More than 10,000 people have been killed in the decades-long insurgency waged by the rebels, who say they are fighting for the rights of marginalized people in India's resource-rich central regions. A senior police officer said reinforcements had been sent to the area, warning that the toll could rise as the police carry out search operations. Police said they had seized assault rifles and grenade launchers from the bodies of the dead rebels. The gunfight broke in the forested areas of Bijapur district in the state of Chhattisgarh, considered the heartland of the insurgency. And according to government data, a crackdown by security forces killed around 287 rebels last year, an overwhelming majority in Chhattisgarh. The Maoists demand land jobs and a share of the region's immense natural resources for local residents. 3 Baltic states connected to the European power grid after severing Soviet-era links with Russia's network, a shift EU chief Ursula von der Leyen hailed as freedom from threats and blackmail.
Climate of the Republic of Estonia.
Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania had been planning the switch for years, but Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine accelerated the process. The small Baltic countries, staunch supporters of Ukraine, fear that they too could be targeted and had worried that Russia might weaponize the electricity grid against them. Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda said he had received confirmation of the grid connection, saying the country has achieved full energy independence. The leaders each received a piece of dismantled cable at a celebratory event in Vilnius, where they symbolically activated the grid connection to dramatic sound and lighting.
Today, history is made. We connect the Baltic states to our continental European electricity grid. Electricity lines with Russia and Belarus are being dismantled. These chains of power lines linking you to hostile neighbors will be a thing of the past. This is freedom, freedom from threats, freedom from blackmails.
A total of 1.6 billion euros has been invested in the synchronization project across the Baltic states and Poland. France will announce private sector investments totaling some 109 billion euros in its artificial intelligence sector during the Paris AI Summit, which opens today. President Emmanuel Macron's office said the financing includes plans by Canadian investment firm Brookfield to invest 20 billion euros in AI projects in France and financing from the United Arab Emirates, which could hit 50 billion euros in the years ahead.
Ça doit se faire par une régulation mondiale, parce qu'il ne faut pas qu'on régule simplement dans un endroit. Cette innovation est mondiale, par des partenariats aussi entre les acteurs privés et publics, et donc que les bons comportements émergent.
The LEC Palace explained that the UAE investment would include financing for a 1 gigawatt data center. A local newspaper meanwhile reported that the bulk of Brookfield's investment would go towards a data center. Artificial intelligence requires huge amounts of energy to power massive data centers, with Europe seen struggling to meet future demand.
76 minit tanpa henti, 76 minutes non-stop. Transparent and concise. Paparan komprehensif, ringkas dan padat. Saksikan Kanta 744, 7.44 malam. Berita perdana 8 malam. Malaysia Tonight, 8:30 p.m.
Welcome back. Prime Minister Albin Kurti's ruling party appeared set to secure the most seats in Kosovo's parliamentary elections, but it remained uncertain whether he stood a chance of forming a majority government. After proclaiming victory, Kurti said he will form the new government without hinting who could be a potential coalition partner. A projection published by leading Kosovo news outlet Koha said Kurti's Vetevendosh party was leading the race with an estimated 42% of votes. The right-wing Democratic Party of Kosovo trailed in second with a 21%, followed by the Democratic League of Kosovo with 20%. Without a single party winning a clear majority in the 120-seat parliament, Kosovo would likely to be headed for days, if not weeks, of coalition talks and political horse trading. 20 seats are reserved for minority parties, including 10 for Kosovo's ethnic Serbs. Longtime rivals, the Democratic Party of Kosovo and Democratic League of Kosovo, have partnered to form coalition governments on multiple occasions since the independence war from Serbia in the late 1990s, following mediation and pressure from the international community. In the run-up to Sunday's vote, Kurti hinted that he would prefer to enter opposition if his party was unable to form a majority government by itself. Polls have closed in Ecuador, where President Daniel Noboa looks likely to win Sunday's presidential election as voters rally behind his promises to fight crime. Despite criticism that he has not done enough and chances that the vote could move to a runoff. Noboa, first elected in 2023 to finish out his predecessor's term, says his deployment of military on the streets and within prisons, among other measures, has reduced violent deaths by 15%, drastically curtailed prison violence and facilitated the capture of major gang leaders. One exit poll by strategy firm Diego Tello Estrategas and released by television station Teleamazonas just after polls closed on Sunday showed Noboa in the lead with 50.12% and Gonzalez second with 42.21%. The margin of error was 2.98%. Other pre-election surveys suggest he will not win outright on Sunday, but would triumph in an April runoff against leftist Luisa Gonzalez, whom he also faced in 2023. Polls closed at 5 p.m. local time, and initial results from the National Electoral Council are expected around 7:30 p.m. local time. Over to Pakistan, where its Navy's multinational exercise Aman 2025 showcased a counter-terrorism demonstration and military band performance at Manora Island, south of Karachi Harbour on Sunday. Special Operations Forces from Pakistan and participating nations showed off tactics and hardware including hovercrafts and helicopters. Cultural exchange was also a key aspect of the event, with military bands from Pakistan and Sri Lanka performing a selection of traditional and military music. The demonstration and performance were attended by personnel from participating navies, observers, foreign diplomats and senior officials from Pakistan's armed forces. The Aman 2025 exercise, which commenced on 7th February, aims to foster regional maritime cooperation and security.
Today it was the demonstration of maritime counter-terrorism, which means that we conduct multiple operations out at sea, which include the VBSS operations and the combat search and rescue operations, and exfiltration and infiltration, including the amphibious operations. Actually today was the day where we demonstrated all these activities collectively in one complete show.
A district in Russia's Sakhalin region has been put on high alert after a Chinese cargo ship Anyang 2 ran aground off the southwest coast of the Sakhalin island. This was confirmed in a statement by the governor of the region in Russia's Far East early on Sunday. The governor, Valery Limarenko, said no fuel spillage was recorded and there was no threat to the crew, but the situation required readiness for any scenario. He added the ship was stranded in the shallow waters of Sakhalin's Nevelsky district. A high alert regime has been introduced in the district. Limarenko later said that it was a Chinese ship, but marine and diving rescuers could not approach the vessel due to a strong storm. Decisions on unloading the vessel or removing it from the shallows will be made as soon as the weather conditions improve. The Sakhalin region in Russia's Far East comprises the Sakhalin Island and the chain of the Kuril Islands. Soviet troops took control of the 4 islands of Japan's Hokkaido, known in Russia as the Kurils and in Japan as the Northern Territories, at the end of World War II, and they have remained in Moscow's hands since. The dispute has prevented the two countries from signing a peace treaty. Namibian President Nangolo Mumba on Sunday announced that Sam Nujoma, the activist and guerrilla leader who became Namibia's first democratically elected president after it won its independence from apartheid South Africa, died aged 95 on Saturday. Nujoma rose to head the thinly populated southern African country on 21st March 1990 and was formally recognized as founding father of the Namibian nation through a 2005 Act of Parliament.
Sorrow and sadness. It is therefore with utmost sorrow and sadness that I make the announcement this morning, the 9th of February 2025, to the Namibian people, our African brothers and sisters, and to the world at large about the passing of our revered freedom fighter and the revolutionary leader, His Excellency Dr. Sam Shafishuna Nujoma.
Nujoma was born in a village in northwestern Namibia in 1929 when his country was under South African administration. South Africa had controlled Namibia since World War I after a brutal few decades of German colonial rule remembered for the genocide of the Herero and Nama people. Nujoma served his 3 terms as president from 1990 to 2005 and sought to project himself as a unifying leader bridging political divides in a country scarred by the legacy of apartheid and German colonial rule. Still to come in sports, 10-man Barca toils for win against Sevilla. Stay tuned. Ten-man Barcelona earned a hard-fought 4-1 win at struggling Sevilla with goals by Robert Lewandowski, Fermin Lopez, Rafinha and Eric Garcia to edge closer to the top of La Liga. Lewandowski gave Barcelona the lead from close range in the 7th minute, but Ruben Vargas hit straight back to equalise for the home side from a quick counter a minute later. Lopez came off the bench and put Barca in front again 2 minutes after the break, and Rafinha extended their lead in the 55th minute with a brilliant strike from outside the box. 5 minutes later, the visitors were reduced to 10 men when Lopez was shown a straight red card for a studs-up challenge on Jibril Sow. But they held off Sevilla and managed to score their 4th goal through Eric Garcia's header in the 89th minute. The win lifted third-place Barca to 48 points, one behind Atletico Madrid in second, and 2 of leaders Real Madrid after the capital rivals drew 1-1 on Saturday. Sevilla, without a win in 3 league games, are in 13th spot on 29 points. Veteran defender Sergio Ramos was unveiled as Monterrey's new signing on Sunday. The former Spain international joined the Mexican side on a 1-year deal on Thursday. Commonly known as Rayados, Monterrey is one of the most economically powerful clubs in the country. It's one of 3 Mexican teams that will participate in the expanded Club World Cup, which is set to be played in the US next summer. The other 2 are Leon and Pachuca. As well as the domestic league, Monterrey is also competing in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. The 38-year-old made the move to Monterrey 7 months after leaving his boyhood club, Sevilla. Ramos made his La Liga debut with Sevilla in the 2003 to 2004 season and moved to Real Madrid 2 years later, winning 22 titles with the Spanish Giants, including 5 La Liga crowns, 4 Champions Leagues and 4 Club World Cups. He spent 2 seasons at Paris Saint-Germain, where he won 2 Ligue 1 titles before returning to Sevilla. Spain's most capped player also won the 2010 World Cup and 2 European Championships with Spain before announcing his international retirement in 2023. Denis Shapovalov surged to the biggest title of his career on Sunday with a 7-6, 6-3 victory against Norway's Casper Ruud at the Dallas Open. The Canadian reeled off his 3rd top 10 win of the week, this time against world number 5 and 2nd seed Ruud to win his first ATP 500 tournament. Shapovalov relied on his booming first serve, firing 13 aces and tricky lefty game to send Ruud from corner to corner. The 25-year-old opened the court with his forehand and looked for opportunities to work his way forward, securing his first win against Ruud in their 3 ATP head-to-head clashes. Shapovalov is now up to 32 in the world rankings, his highest position since September 2023. He has enjoyed a week in which he also defeated Miomir Kekmanovic, Taylor Fritz, Tomas Machak and Tommy Paul, most of whom are exceptional rivals. The left-hander has won all 3 of his tour-level titles in indoor hard courts, adding Dallas to his previous triumphs in Stockholm and Belgrade. Shapovalov was, however, forced to shut down his 2023 season after Wimbledon, where he suffered a knee injury. And that wraps up today's bulletin. In our top story, Israel withdraws from Netzarim corridor in Gaza. Malaysia Madani, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thanks for watching. Have a pleasant afternoon.